All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast on the E2KG network. It is, gentlemen, this is our 170th show. So, this is our GX show. It's our game experience show for the week of November 19. We are here with a whole bunch of games to talk about. And to do so, we've got the entire cast here, the whole crew. So joining me tonight is Swiskar. How are you, sir?
Doing very well.
Excellent. And Osiris Prime.
I'm doing well. It's nice to have the Brady Bunch boxes back in full force here.
Bump, ba-dum, ba-dum, bump. And joining us is also Agasicles Stamus. How are you, sir?
Staying and maintaining.
Woohoo! All right, that probably popped the levels a little bit, but that is okay. So I'm going to dive right in. On the Enough to Keep Going podcast, every other week we come at you with our game experience show. This is our what we've been playing, not only what we've been playing in terms of our own free time, but also we give ourselves a little homework because we are grown-ups who game, because we are parents and professionals. We know the value of giving ourselves some projects, giving ourselves some assignments, and sometimes we even follow through on them. So tonight we've got one as well, but we're going to start off, because this is the fall gaming season with a lot of new releases. We're going to start right in with a couple of some new releases from the last week. So Agasicles and Prime, you both have been playing Black Ops Cold War. So take me back to the 80s. Prime, you are a resident Black Ops, or at least Call of Duty aficionado. So, how's the game? Are you playing multiplayer? Have you tried some of the story? What's your thoughts? How does it feel compared to last year's? And where does Warzone fit into all this?
Yeah, so I can't take you back to the 80s. I haven't played the single player yet, the campaign. I've just been playing multiplayer so far. Just the regular competitive, team deathmatch and stuff like that. But it's just like, and I haven't played any kind of mode like that for a couple years now because I've been knee deep in all the battle royale games that have been coming out lately. So it's actually kind of nice to go back to Black Ops. And I actually bought this one. I hadn't bought Call of Duty since probably 4, because that was the one with the first, that was with Blackout, their first battle royale, Call of Duty's first battle royale. And I only played a little bit of the multiplayer on that one, and I just jumped knee deep into Blackout. So this is actually my first.
Just a quick so you're kind of so 4 you're counting from Modern Warfare, right? Or you got you have to not
Black Ops.
Counting from Black Ops. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool.
I know the numbering is like super weird.
Because I was like, we're at Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty 3, Modern Warfare.
Yeah, just the Black Ops series. So I hadn't played competitive for a long time. I did a little bit in like I said, I did a little bit for Warzone Modern Warfare. I didn't buy the whole game, so I was just playing Warzone, which is free. A free component, and I didn't play World War II when it came out. I think I played the beta, and that was about it. I didn't even buy that game, and I enjoyed the beta. It kind of went back to just regular, run and gunning. But I was already jumping into battle royale at that time, so I'd moved on a little bit from that. So it was kind of nice to come back to just regular competitive multiplayer. Just like ride the bike, I just jump right back in there, and I think I've said it before. Black Ops has always been one of my favorite of the series, of the Call of Duty series. So it was, pretty familiar. All the guns are more or less modern. They're a little bit older, I guess, because it's the 80s, but it's still very familiar to me. So
you still end up with like character classes or special abilities like you had in Black Ops 4 and 3?
No, they pretty much gone back to basics to the first Black Ops and the second one. Well, maybe not so much the second one because that was more futuristic. But as far as the characters or the creation loadouts and stuff, it's just, they went back to kill streaks and score streaks and stuff like that, which I don't think they totally would not have. But it's pretty much just how it was in the first Black Ops. And I actually played original Black Ops. I think last year I played a little bit of it, and it seems like the same thing basically. There's some updates here and there, just the way you kind of create your loadout and stuff. So they are just kind of tweaking that, and I know people, for good or bad, people kind of like, when they do something, but you can't please everybody. But it just seems like the original Black Ops to me, so it's kind of nice.
And I guess, Khalees, you're also playing, but as the man with both new consoles, what are you playing on? And partly, how does it run and what you're playing, and how did you decide?
Yeah, so I'm playing on PlayStation 5. It runs pretty great. I don't have a 120 hertz display, so I'm just playing on a 60 hertz display. So, I mean, it's applying more, it's bringing more power to the fight than the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One did or does. So it's fine. It's got some, in accordance with the next generation kind of hardware. It's got some additional graphical tweaks available as far as giving console players the type of control that we have become accustomed to on PC. So there is a field of view slider. I think it's default at 80, and I play at 120, which is the field of view slider maxed out, which is the way I play on PC normally. But I will say with Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which scales to 4K and has a huge field of view, like that one, in order to be competitive, on a PC, when I play it on a high refresh rate monitor, it's not necessarily a given that I just max everything out. So I have to tweak it to get the kind of picture that I want. Otherwise, you get this 4K 120 wide view and like a guy popping up on the screen out of prone looks like a speck. So you can't zoom in on him. So but on the console, I do go ahead and max it out. So I'm not really certain, how it plays, above 60 frames per second. According to that TV's on-screen display, it's at 4K 60. So, graphically the game looks great from an engine perspective. When you're kind of when things are fast, and I mean, this is a key component I think to how gamers take there's everybody's pulling apart and like at the nitnoid level of detail on like the graphics on these things, and I'm like, when things are fast, you don't notice, right? Like, I mean, when Call of Duty is blazing away at 60 frames per second, like, I don't know. But in this game, when you do slow down and vice what Osiris Prime is doing, I am playing the single player campaign. So there are some quieter moments in there as you're like searching around in a given room looking for evidence or just transitioning from one scene to the next. There are some opportunities for you to kind of look around and you notice the scenery, you notice the detailing on the weapons. So it.
Any haptic feedback on the controller?
Oh my gosh!
Can we turn that off? By the way,
you can scale it. I haven't gone in to check and see if you can completely zero it out. I assume that you can, but I have noticed I've just left it at default. I have noticed in the menu that you can scale it. And as I mentioned before, up until this generation, I have been a diehard. I prefer the Xbox controller, hands down, over the PlayStation variant. It is flipped this generation. Like the DualSense control, what the DualSense controller brings to the fight is just a mountain of technology that just isn't present in the Xbox controller. I mean, and by and large, up until this generation, I've looked at the controllers are essentially a commodity, right? They're, like another USB cable. They're like an old pack-in game. Like they set their design, they set their pattern, and you make your choice based on those ergonomics. Essentially, that's it. There hasn't been a ton of difference between Rumble. That's pretty much been the same. I think they've actually used the same, licensed technology. But the DualSense controller, if you've ever used a force feedback like racing wheel or flight control system, that is kind of what you're dealing with the DualSense controller. And back in the day when those controllers were in vogue, that was absolutely, like, I would pay the extra money to get that type of feedback because it was more realistic. And that's the additional degree of immersion that the DualSense controller brings. Still, obviously, not crazy about the thumbstick side by side, but it is a larger controller, so it is not, that controller comes out of the box, it doesn't feel like it's made for baby hands. So it is much more akin to being at parity with the Xbox controller size. So I definitely appreciate that. But yeah, the DualSense controller for me is actually it's difficult to walk by it. So it sits on my right now. It's sitting on, with my large screen TV. It is difficult for me to come into the studio and see that controller and walk past it and go play something else. Right? I'm highly tempted to just bring the PlayStation 5 up just to interface with that controller. Which if you remember my little quadrant of gaming satisfaction, mechanical feedback, a feeling of mechanical precision, and that interface with the controller is a big thing that I crave after decades of driving tanks, planes, ships, and other stuff in the military. Having my hands on big burly equipment is just a feeling that I prefer, and helps with that depth of immersion in a game. I will say, since you asked a little bit about like playing on that specific console, since we haven't talked about the PlayStation 5, however, the worst thing on that, like, it's going to be hard for me to talk through this. So number one, have you played Warzone?
Yes, I have played Warzone.
On out of Cold War?
Oh, no, not yet.
Okay. Do you have War? You're playing on Xbox?
Yeah, Xbox X. Yep.
Okay, and you have Warzone on Xbox?
Yes.
Okay, that's very good, because even though you're given the impression that you're paying for pulling down and that Warzone is included with Cold War, it's not. It's basically a hyperlink, because when you hit Warzone out of the launcher in Call of Duty, what it actually does, as far as I can tell, it actually counts down and then pulls up the Warzone that is sitting over as part of Modern Warfare. So,
okay.
So on the
is it playing the PlayStation 4 version of that then, or
I don't know. I don't know for certain that Warzone has received a graphical upgrade that makes it a PlayStation 5 version.
I know they said it's coming, so
Right.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit last week about the stores. That is the travesty of Call of Duty, and it is by and far the most egregious example that I've encountered with the problems with the store on the PlayStation 5. And so it's like the problems are like here are like 7, right? Like Call of Duty Black Ops is up here. So you pull up, so you buy the game, you get presented a manifest of the files, which is about 14, somewhere between 14 and 18 files. Like, it's a screen long list of the files that you now are entitled to. First of all, as far as I know, there's only one single player campaign. There's 3 single player campaign files, like discrete files. Why you present those to me separately, as if downloading one of them without the other 2 will enable me to play the single player campaign, I don't know. But the other problem is that, from the Xbox paradigm, I've gotten used to now going in and like looking at the actual description of the size of the files for a given game. Call of Duty Cold War reports that it's 190 gigs. It's 190 gigs inclusive of both the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 version. One of the options that you're given is download all, and if you hit that link, you will download both versions of the game, and it will install on 2 different hard drives if you have them connected. So the PlayStation 5 version will come down and go to the internal drive. The PlayStation 4 version will come down and go to the external drive. It is like, and so the first time through the hoop, I didn't realize that. So when I came back to play, both versions are sitting on your PlayStation 5, and the only way you could tell the difference is fortunately it has the same kind of filter that the Xbox Series X and S do. There's a PlayStation 5 filter on your library, and there's a PlayStation 4 filter on your library, and if you don't filter, it will launch the PlayStation 4 version. Like, it's an absolute travesty of engineering. Like, I don't understand how, why they did. I mean, next year, so again, it's separate from the PlayStation 5, but directly associated with next year, Activision just needs to they need to take Call of Duty out of the Battle.net launcher on PC and just give Call of Duty its own launcher. Now, since we're going to have multiple versions, and people obviously play multiple versions, and they got stuff all over the place, they just put it in its own launcher. It never made sense in the Battle.net launcher anyway, because you have 8, 9, 10 Blizzard games, and then Call of Duty. So at any rate, it's a major problem on the PlayStation 5. So, But once you get past that, so I had to uninstall everything because, by the way, you're presented that laundry list of manifest files on the PlayStation 5. If you navigate away from that screen, you can never get back. At least not in the store. Maybe you can on the PlayStation 5 UI operating system itself. I've never figured out, once I go past that manifest file screen, I've never figured out a way to get back to that on any game.
They don't have a PS Explorer or anything.
Well, it's your library, and the only way to control it is to squelch it by platform. The other problem is, so now, right, let's just say for the sake of argument, there were 18 files, right? The only thing I can do is I can't select individual files. I can just select what platform. So I selected the PlayStation. So I uninstalled everything, selected the PlayStation 5 version, downloaded that. When it pulled down, first of all, another problem. This drives me nuts. If you remember back in the day, you used to be given the option on the PlayStation 4 to pull down the single player version first or the multiplayer version first. Well, on the PlayStation 5, you're presented that option after buying Cold War to pull down one of 3 versions. They're all multiplayer. You are no longer given the option to pull down the single player first. So there is no more, hey, I just want to play the single player campaign first and get started as quickly as possible. You can either pull down multiplayer, zombies, or I can't remember what the third one is, but you're not. So late 1 o'clock in the morning, I wanted to just blow away everything and get started as fast as possible. I couldn't do that. So once I selected that PlayStation 5 version from the filter in my library, it just automatically decided on its own, didn't allow me to have any input. It decided to pull down 4 files. I don't know if I'm entitled to 4 files, 8 files, or 9 files. I don't know if I've pulled down every mode. I just know that I have Call of Duty, Cold War, PlayStation 5 version, some single-player files, and some multiplayer files. I have no idea. This is the thing that drives me nuts. I have no idea that I'm not one day going to hit some mode, and it's going to go to pull down a big, huge 40-gigabyte package that I never downloaded in the first place, that had I known, I may have chosen to do that download, in the middle of the night when I wasn't tapping my foot trying to get into multiplayer with friends of mine. So it's a major problem, and Cold War, like I said, is the worst example of the problems on the store. But other than that, the single player game plays great. The most impressive thing about it is, and here's where I'll wrap up. We're old. I'm a Cold War kid. I grew up in that time. I grew up watching movies like Red Dawn, Firefox, War Games, right? It's a very nice flow having played Modern Warfare last year and being like, everything today is insider threat, is you don't know who to trust. The worst enemies are our own people. Like enemies are friends, and then enemies and competimates and frenemies, and all, like. So going back to a time where like Ronald Reagan walks into a room and Alexander Haig is sitting at the table, and these are all the people who were coming into power as I first as a kid like became politically and internationally aware of international diplomacy, and having that very kind of clean presentation of like, this group is a set of bad guys, these group are allies, and hearkening back to kind of that Red Dawn time period, that movie, that cinematic time period. It was very refreshing, right? Modern Warfare, I think, was a great single player campaign, and loved the multiplayer. It's a good. I do like where we're getting with Call of Duty, where it's this TikTok thing where it's a little more settled and not all over the place with the 3 studios. I don't know what they're gonna do after this with all the beef between, Sledgehammer and Raven or whatever. But they're getting into a nice flow back and forth, like some of the other series that, where we get a variant every other year. So I do like this one.
This is a short development cycle for Treyarch, right? Because Sledgehammer hasn't had one. I mean, World War II was 3 years ago at this point, and then you had Black Ops 4, and so this is a shorter development cycle.
And that's the unfortunate thing. World War II, which, Prime, you're probably fine having skipped it because that was probably not the most engaging multiplayer, but it was absolutely one of the best single player campaigns ever, in 10, 14 versions of Call of Duty. And so there's a little bit of sadness, with that, but I don't know exactly how they split up duties, so it's very feasible that Sledgehammer did a large part of the story for the single player campaign on this, but it was mostly Treyarch, heading up, the multiplayer modes. So, but this one's good. I like it.
So game good, interface on system bad. So we got through a little bit of some PlayStation hot takes there as well. So let's stick on the PlayStation brand. And I've been playing Miles Morales, Spider-Man Miles Morales. It came out last week. It's more Spider-Man with a little extra style, and it's so fun. It is just swinging through the city, being Miles. It is enjoyable. I mean, if you enjoyed the last Spider-Man, or if you didn't play the last Spider-Man but have a affinity for Miles as a character, this is an excellent version of Miles as a character. He is, there's a lot of, just like in the last game with Peter Parker, where there was a lot of time out of suit as Peter Parker. There's a lot of story built into that. Same is true for Miles, that you spend a lot of time, at least early on, you spend a lot of time. I'm only maybe 43%, I think is what my save file says. And again, this is a shorter game, but it is packed full with lots of side missions. You get a lot of stuff swinging around the city. You are, instead of kind of helping out the cops and getting police scanner calls like you did in Spider-Man, you have an app that alerts you to both crimes but also people in need. That people can post things on there where they need help. Early in the game, you meet your uncle. As Spider-Man, you meet your uncle, who's been estranged from the family, and so that it adds some nice dynamic. They start playing with that character as well. There's some suspension of disbelief. It is a comic book game after all. That you have Miles's mother, who just moved to Harlem, and is now from Brooklyn and is now running for city council, which but it sets up a nice narrative, and the narrative is just as much kind of bad guy, a superhero, as it is local neighborhood versus high tech firm. Right? This is, you can tell that it's written kind of in the vein and in the time when the whole Amazon New York headquarters was being discussed, because it falls into some of that as well.
So without spoiling any of the story elements, so can you say whether or not? We know at this point that we know Peter Parker makes an appearance in the game. Are there any other Marvel character cameos in the game, without saying specifically who it was? I mean,
not that I've seen so far.
Any like titular characters from other not like enemies or whatever.
Not like other people from within the Marvel, outside of the Spider-Man universe. Not that I've seen so far. Right, we get some return of some villains, we get some additions to people. Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man is in there early on, and then there's a narrative reason why he is not there, and it works out just fine. Actually, it plays really well narratively because of it, that it kind of thrusts Miles into some more responsibility that he wouldn't have taken on if Peter Parker was there. So no, there's not a lot of kind of crossover, and even the last game didn't have a whole lot of that, other than when you got Black Cat in on the DLC, but you didn't really get, you got a couple hints of things, but not any characters kind of coming in and participating.
Gotcha. Did you now you played the 2018 Spider-Man, yes, right? And you played that game all the way through, right?
Yes.
So I know there was a bit of a scramble today by you and Prime to try and obtain next generation consoles. Having played that Miles Morales, though, I mean, are you satisfied? I mean, I know that we've had instances where we have like games at the end of a generation that look beautiful, but you can see the hardware like chugging and like straining to keep up. Or has this been an experience where it makes you like not worry too much about leaping to next gen?
I will say that I'm not in a hurry. It's a beautiful game. I've got it hooked up to 4K television. HDR looks great in it. It's set in the wintertime, so you get a lot of light reflection from snow. I could see where it really is going to pop with ray tracing in terms of those lighting effects. But really, it looks beautiful. Listening to other people on other podcasts and things like that, certainly the PlayStation 5, the ray tracing aspect of it makes it pop even further. But outside of the load times, no, I have not really seen any. I haven't seen a lot of. It's running at a stable 30 frames. It feels fine. Um, I think it helps that I had played 2018 Spider-Man on a 1080p, so putting it up on a 4K with a PlayStation Pro immediately makes it feel a little bit refined, even though it is still kind of built on that same engine. So yeah, I mean, I can see, listening to people that have played it on PlayStation 5, and there are settings there that are not present on the 4, where on PlayStation 5 you can set it for fidelity in terms of turning ray tracing on, or you can set it for performance and get 60 frames per second. And, most the reviews that I've read and things like that, most people have kept it in the fidelity mode just because of the graphical aspect of it and the beauty. So, but no, it's a blast of a game. It is super fun. There's a swinging through the city always is fun. It was fun with the 2008 version. I mean, the 2018, it was fun previously. Miles adds a little bit of his own flair to it, right? You can do a little bit of kind of Tony Hawk tricks with it as you're swinging, like you release, and you can do some spins and flips and kind of ollies and grabs, and you'll get just a little bit of XP with it as you do that. Or if you chain a bunch of those together, you'll get some XP. And it's not enough to necessarily level you up, but it kind of gives you a reason to kind of swing around and have some fun. Just it plays to, here's a new kid who has superpowers and is just loving being a superhero, right? I mean, it plays right into that kind of narrative aspect that he's himself, and having fun being, and again, the narrative goes places and it's not always fun, and there's that superhero learns the value of sacrifice types of things, but it's not too tropey in terms of the story so far. It certainly feels authentic to different versions of Miles, whether it's the original Bendy's Ultimate Spider-Man, or even the Spider-Verse Miles. There's definitely some of that, and there's the costumes are fun. I did play around with the Spider-Verse costume, which drops some frame rates, and it looks cool. But actually, the in-game Spider-Man costume is pretty nice. But there's kind of a cartoony one, which then just really pops off the screen and has some nice lighting effects to it as well. All right, let's keep moving on to one more new release from the past week. We had Destiny 2 Beyond Light. This is the new expansion for Destiny 2. Last week, Beyond Light launched, and this week we had the season of the Hunt. So, Swiss, you've been sitting patiently, except for nodding and smiling when Agasicles was raving about the DualSense, and your PlayStation fanboyism kind of showed through there a little bit. But talk us through, have you and Vela been playing a little bit of Beyond Light?
We have picked it up a day or two after launch, because that's when we had time to play it. But so far, we haven't gotten terribly far. I think when you start out, I think they boosted everybody to light level like 1050, and we've gone up to light level 1100. But this is the first time in a while that we haven't had the season pass, so we're using like regular XP gains rather than the boosted stuff. So take that 50 light level for what it is. But yeah, my initial impressions are good. It's a little bit jarring when you get in there and you see, one is they kind of put a new coat of paint on everything, like so. And I may have should have probably known that going in, but I tend to be the type of gamer where if I know a game's coming out and I know it's in my wheelhouse and I'm interested, I don't read up on it. I don't pay attention to it. I don't look at previews. I don't look at other people's reviews. I want to experience it for myself and form my own opinion. So I didn't really know that they were going to polish it up that much. And so that was a little bit different. And I kind of don't like my character's haircut anymore.
They did
mean,
add, or they changed some
Yeah.
character hairstyles, some
It's a little bit weird,
and
but
modified.
I mean, it looks good once you're actually in there.
Yeah, it looks real nice. Looks real nice
yeah,
on PC.
and it's a little jarring also to have your new destinations map without, you know, Mars, Mercury, Titan went away, as well as Io, and so now you have Europa. So the game takes place on Europa, and my initial impressions of that map are pretty good too. It's like it has elements from other worlds, because like with the storyline, it's a fallen. Now they have like what they call themselves now, the Elixni or something.
That's their race. I mean,
Yeah.
the humans called them Fallen, but the Elixni is what their race is.
For a non-lore guy, like, I mean, I collect the lore and I'm like, someday I'm gonna go through read that, but I haven't ever. Oh, okay, so they have a name that's not the Fallen now, but it you know, you're the main kind of character that you work through for your quests and your bounties and whatnot is a Fallen character. I guess they did that with Spider too, but um given that it's centered on the Fallen and there's groups of Fallen that happen to be on Europa, there's actually a lot of architecture that you would recognize from the Tangled Shore, like that whole Fallen kind of cyberpunk, or cyberpunk's not the right word, but punkish architectures there. But also because Europa was originally like a Braytech Industries thing, so there's some stuff that reminds you of what you had on Mars.
So
And
that catches me off guard, because I would have thought, I guess I just had in my mind that what I expected to see was like the first area in Destiny, which was theoretically what, like in Russia.
Yeah,
and,
the Cosmodrome.
Yeah, and on that continent, and I just would have. I was expecting that we were going to see that type of scenery, which you didn't really get to play a lot in. You kind of dipped into it and then got in the ship and then you were gone. So that's interesting.
You get those elements, but it's also kind of all rooted in like a Hoth like ice landscape type
Yeah,
thing.
you do get some of those same platforms and curved structures that you see from Fallen things. So yeah, there's a little bit of that there, but it has more of a Mars feeling to it, in part because of the Braytech aspect, and also in part because of, to me, the cavernous aspect of it. Like sometimes you're up on the surface, but oftentimes you're kind of diving down into some ice caves and some other places as well.
And the ice caves look great. Like I love going down. That's one of the it looks nice. And one complaint I would have about the map is that it's very large. So once you kind of get in and you do the first couple of missions, or the first mission or whatever, you have your hub area in Europa. Whenever you have to go do another mission, you're always having to get on your little scooter or whatever they call it thing to to go, like your I don't know, what are the things they used on Endor? Yeah, your Sparrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
your speeder bike. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to take those. So it's not as tight a map as some of the other ones, which can be good or bad. On the positive aspect is there's definitely more scale. I know Agasicles, you had complained in the past about like how limited Mercury was, for example. You don't have to worry about that here. It's a very broad map. But on the other hand, if you're just like, oh, I want to get to the next mission, I got to spend 20 seconds on my Sparrow or whatever to go across. But that's a small one. The Fallen, like, you know how they have like the little power where they can make themselves invisible, the cloaking aspect, like that's actually powerful now. Like I've noticed, like before with like the graphics, it was still pretty easy to see the Fallen run around, but I don't know if whether it's the graphical upgrade or the fact that you're on like a whitish blue snowscape, but it's actually I've been surprised by some of them from time to time. But
I found that same thing. Like it is because the outline is kind of white, blue,
yeah.
and then you're also on, especially like when a storm comes up, because the new planet does have, or the moon has weather effects, and so sometimes it'll be clear, and then you'll see, it'll gray out, and you'll get a storm brewing and coming in, and then it gets even more difficult to kind of make out some things or somebody from distance. But yeah, I think it is part just like the natural camouflage of the ice and snow.
Yeah. So beyond that, the big thing is I think the no, now the word escapes me. So the stasis that you can get, they don't give it to you right away, so you have to go through the campaign steps to get it. They give you a little taste, like, oh, okay, you kind of start to get the power, and then they take it away, and you're gonna have to build it up. But you get a taste of where they give it to you, and then you get the hordes of enemies, and they just keep refilling your super meter. So it's just like, go ahead, have fun with this right now, see what you're gonna take from it. And I think it's gonna be pretty cool to have. It's like you can freeze the enemies and shatter them, and it'll be good. So pretty much all my like, I'm not that far, but my impressions have been positive, and I'm liking the mission structure again. I'm sure that at some point it's going to get into a do these bounties type grind, but so far we have you need to go here and fight your way through this stuff or kill that guy over there, and so it still feels like the feeling I had with Red War campaign. I get that little bit of a vibe again, which is refreshing considering, I don't know, I've been playing a lot of the season pass content, and I don't plan on buying the season pass this year. I don't think it's worth it. For if they don't beef up like the storytelling and the narrative stuff, with that, like, I don't know.
So I'll say right now, I was in your boat until last night, and I played the kind of opening of the season, and the crow is there. Aldrin Sav is back, but doesn't really realize he's Aldrin Sav. How much they do with that narratively, but they set it up. They give you kind of a forced mission. There's a good amount of cutscenes to it, and it hooked me in terms of if they're going to run with this narrative and bring back this character, there's a lot of potential. Whether or not it ends up just being grindy is always the kind of worry there.
So let me make sure I understand. So Beyond Light, in certain ways, it's kind of like a reset or a reboot. Maybe not quite a reboot, but definitely a reset. Are you saying so? Wait, there's narrative content. Well, I mean, with the vaulting
and there's yes.
I mean, so
yes.
Yeah,
let's say that. Yeah, they vaulted a number of things. It's a refresh to that thing.
Yes. Look, you're a comic book guy. I'm a comic book guy. This is like a number one issue, right? Of a character that's been running forever, but it's like they rebooted it. So if you walk into it, you can slipstream into like the current reality without all the baggage of the past, right?
So yes.
Okay.
You can jump right in because you start at 1050, and if you come in as a new player, doing the Beyond Light story isn't going to make too much sense because like you don't have a context for Varix. There is some things there, but what I did in addition to playing some Beyond Light is I deleted one of my characters and started fresh to see what the new Cosmodrome experience, because they brought back the Cosmodrome from Destiny 1, and when they launched New Light 2 years ago, they had like an opening mission. Basically, you went through the opening mission of the original Destiny and you got your ship, and then you were just thrown into everything. Here, they've modified that. You still kind of run the same opening mission, but when you get to the bunker where your ship normally would be, you meet another Guardian. And then you have a number of series of other missions that introduce you to different systems, that introduce you to the whole bounty system. And you run through some story stuff. They bring you around. They introduce you to public events. So it's the best onboarding that Destiny's ever had.
Yeah, it's
It's
not
a
as
really nice kind of story there too, a little kind of side story piece. What were you gonna say?
it sounds like it's not as presumptuous as the last time. It was called New Light, but I mean, like you said, you got like the accelerated starter, and it was almost as if the assumption was you had played some of this before. So part of my
Let me
yeah, go
finish
ahead.
this one
Yeah,
first,
sorry.
right? Because when you finish up that little intro story, they bring you to the tower, but instead of dropping you in the tower that's that's instanced with everybody else, you come into it and it's just you, and it runs you through, introduces you to all the different characters and what they do. So you get a little bit of what Shax does. You go meet the Drifter and you understand what he does, and so you get both narrative but also kind of what roles they play in terms of doling out content as well. So
So
go ahead. What's your say?
Destiny 2 is essentially gone.
Yeah, right. The Red War and the first year expansions are gone.
Okay. So you mentioned no. So there's Beyond Light. There's Beyond Light, and then you mentioned that you bought the season. So is there a third narrative in there somewhere?
Okay, so there's Beyond Light is like your expansion and kind of core story, and there's a number of story pieces that happen after the narrative. The Elixir part, as you said, Swiss, is pretty good, and then there's 3 seasons during the year, and each of those seasons has some little narrative in it, and the narrative between the season of the hunt and Beyond Light are totally separated. Like you're not dealing you're in Beyond in the season of the hunt, you're going after Osiris comes back, his ghost has been killed. There's a hive god, like the hive queen, the brother or the sister of Oryx is here, or is threatening to show up, and so you're running different things with a lot of hive stuff. So it ends up being its own little kind of side story piece there. Limited run series. How about that?
So Swiss, when you say you're planning on not buying the season pass, are you saying that you're playing Beyond Light and then you're done? I mean, except
I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that, I mean, when like with the season of the Worthy, I think that was the one where they started to see the like the ships were starting to come in, and you had to like power up Rasputin or what. No, that was when they were going to fling the Leviathan or whatever it was, or the whatever that ship was that was going to come down. Like they had like story, and you're like, all right, I'll play through, and it was just a grind, and then it was there wasn't really much of a narrative payoff. It was just like an excuse to grind, and I don't know. I have much more fun with each of the major expansions, like Forsaken or Shadowkeep or whatever. That it's just more entertaining to go through the missions than it was to do the season pass, and so I'm debating whether I want to pull back and maybe try to focus on some other franchise, spend some time doing some other multiplayer franchises, because this is like the game that my wife and I play. Like this is our like we play together type game.
right. So it sounds like you're flipping to maybe doing this and then backing off to just playing the big annual
right
narrative
maybe
cinematic.
We'll see how it goes.
I would agree with you though. I mean, last year, all 3 seasons were. But I didn't buy them. I mean, I think I bought the first one and was really disappointed. Same with you, right? Like it pulls you in quickly and then just gives you a giant grind afterward without much of a
and then
payoff.
doesn't pay it off at all. Like there's nothing.
Yep, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't purchased the season yet. I've only played the intro mission, and so I'm curious to see if there's enough narrative to come back to.
Well, almost more so. They deliberately like you play the big cinematic narrative thing right at the drop, right, and then you kind of know as you're playing through the incremental seasons, right, that each progressive season is essentially gonna heavily marginalize, if not wipe out, the whole point of you doing right. They're just gonna light level everybody up to catch up with you. So I don't know.
Yeah,
It's fun though.
Not worth. Is it worth grinding that armor or whatever because everybody's going to jump up? Real fast, and then we can move on. Like you did mention that they've added some new stuff. The other, like we play the campaign missions and whatnot, but the big like PvP ish thing that we play is Gambit, and with
I wanted to hear your thoughts on Gambit.
They modified Gambit, so they took Gambit Prime, which was the one round where you have to get 100 motes deposited in the bank, but you do the goofy crap where you have to kill the wizard thing and sit in the little light circle that it appears to shoot the primeval boss at the end of the match type stuff. And the other thing with the Gambit Prime is if there were too many of the big fallen enemies that come to the bank, it would drain the moats. On the other hand, you had regular Gambit, which was a best of 3, and that's just pure get the most moats you can the fastest, and then kill the primeval once you max your moats out, kill the boss type thing. They combine the two, so now you have one round. You have to go up to 100 moats. They do the thing where if the blockers get summoned and there's too many of the medium and large blockers, it starts draining moats from you, so you can like miss out on stuff, or you can be good, and then that if they plan their deposits quickly, it'll drain the moats fast on you. And but they took out the goofiness with like you have to slay the wizards,
the blockers. Yeah.
Yeah. When
the two when the primeval comes, right? You don't have the two kind of ones to
right.
The side bosses. Yeah.
So you can kill the side bosses to make you more powerful against the primeval, but it's not like the weird way that Gambit Prime did it anymore. So it fuses the two. For the most part, I don't mind it. It's fine. It feels more abrupt because we used to always play the original Prime, or the original Gambit, which is best of 3, and now it's just one longer match. I don't necessarily like the moat draining because it takes away the need for the invaders more. So now it's more about timing your deposits together rather than having a guy go across or somebody go across and disrupt them. Like I think it takes away a little bit from the PvP, but they didn't destroy the integrity of Gambit, so I'm happy about that.
So one last thing thank you. I was really curious about Gambit. I do want to note that they just did a hotfix today because of the stasis power that you were talking about, Swiss. The ability to freeze, and then when people are frozen, they take additional damage. It was running havoc over PvP in the Crucible, that everybody was just, you could be in a traditional super and get frozen and it would drop you out and it would be a one-hit kill afterward. It was really, any Destiny podcast the two Destiny podcasts, the community podcast and Fireteam Chat from IGN, there was a lot of conversation in the community about kind of how broken PvP was because of that. So it'll be interesting to see how the hotfix changes some of those pieces.
And I don't know if you remember, Gascles, but when we played the other day, you were using that Wither Horde grenade launcher. They took that out, like it's not available anymore. Like I got in and there was a message just like, by the way, Wither Horde will be disabled for the time being, and I'm like, because it's pretty effective because it has the area of effect thing, but they took that out too.
All right, so we have churned through. Again, this is a season of games, so we got good big stuff, new releases to talk about. But we're gonna go back in time now to our Fix Plays assignment, and our assignment was really about looking back at this past console generation. Are there things that we haven't had a chance to get to? Something in your backlog, something that's been lying around that you haven't had to get to, or something that you have always had on your wish list, but just recently purchased when it went on sale. So we were going to go back and do a number of these, and everybody has taken some things. Some are pretty far back, and some are not so much. So I'm going to give my hits. We've taken a good amount of time here, so I'm gonna go first in the assignment just to get it out of the way. I'm going to say I played some Bloodborne on PlayStation 4 because I never really got into it, and I'm still not into it, and that's okay. I appreciate what it does. I can respect it for the game that it is, and I just don't care for it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I traded Bloodborne at some point because I feel the same way.
So does that mean there'll be no Demon Souls for you on PlayStation 5 when you bump up?
Nope, I'm okay with passing on the Souls-like aspects.
Gotcha.
That's okay. I also dove in and once I bounced off of that relatively quickly, I dove in and played a little bit of GTA Online, GTA 5 Online, because it is the second best-selling game of all time, right behind Minecraft, and I understand why. I gotta say though that playing Spider-Man, playing Miles Morales, and having the fluidity of being able to swing around an entire city, and then just kind of clunk around as your lumbering GTA guy, or woman is slow. But I also get what it is. I have gone back multiple nights. I am kind of enjoying the exploration, kind of the make of it what you will. But I'm also really understanding the benefit of a faster hard drive and the ability to not sit in loading screens on GTA Online for significant chunks of time. So, those are my quick hits. Let's keep going on the loading screen train. And Gascles, you chose Anthem as yours, and we also, Osiris and I had a chance to play with you a little bit and saw how quickly you loaded in while we were not loading into Anthem. But talk us through not only why you chose it, but your experience with it.
Yeah, so I spent some time playing Anthem on the Xbox Series S. I wound up playing this game because it came up in my windshield as a way to get at the EA Play content that arrived as a new service rollout along with the launch of the new consoles. I think I'm going to kind of, in some ways, not talk about the way things were the night that we played, because I'm fingers crossed that was an anomaly. But the interesting thing about this is obviously the game has been handed off to BioWare Austin, who are the Star Wars: The Old Republic guys, and they've made the decision to continue working at this game while it is live. So they haven't taken it offline and retinkered and then rebooted it. So there's probably going to be some growing pains here and there, but I tell you, I mean, I get it. I understand now. When the news first came out about they were going to keep working at this game, like so many of us went, look, you guys have failed. Just need to let it go and move on. But I get it. Like the bones of that game are arguably one of the best frameworks that's just deployed right now. I mean, I love playing Destiny 2, but getting in, I know it's called a javelin. I still think of it as a mech. You get in your mech, and that feeling of taking off like Iron Man is just like unparalleled. And so, there are modes and ways to play that game now that are great. Like the single player experience, or even the Destiny 2 no comms, unspoken co-op kind of experience that we've talked about a lot. That's awesome. And you can go through that story, and it's impressive to me, at least so far, just what's there from a campaign perspective. So I'm pretty satisfied with it. I'm going to keep at it. It is it's a little kind of Titanfall like. That's what it kind of harkens back to for me. It's just awesome to be in the air with a squad. I mean, we had problems getting into servers and whatnot, but man, once we were in mission, like, that's the happy, like, there's a smile on my face, like, being in there with co-op. I think that feeling in co-op exceeds, like, feelings I had during Gears of War, feelings, that we've had during, our Destiny 2 nights and whatnot. So it feels like it's something special, like in the power differentiation and the way you have to approach class specialization it's a great choice to have isolated you to one class until you're level like 8. I think it is. I think I've gotten like my second javelin now, but then just filtering it in so you don't just get access to everything all at once and people can mix and match and swap over. Like, you're going to pick a javelin type and specialize in that. So, I mean, this is to me, this is a second life. It's great that it's on Game Pass now so that people have an opportunity to enjoy it. It was in my backlog because I listened to all the, stay away from this game, don't bother with it. But it is definitely getting a second life now, deployed on Game Pass, and I'm having a huge amount of fun with it.
Yeah, no, I can, as somebody who has come back to that game on PC and Xbox over the last 2 years just to see, because, yeah, the actual gameplay of it is so fun. And flying as you said, like Iron Man, it is more fun in Anthem to fly than it is to fly as Iron Man in Marvel's Avengers. So, and maybe that's not saying a whole lot, but
Yeah,
anyhow,
yeah, and I think the thing is, just to nail it down to the gameplay, what it does is it stretches the battlefield, like it makes it 3 times as big. Like the notion of verticality in that game. I think the most vertical game we've played has been Halo 5. Like I was really impressed by the way the levels in Halo 5 like stretch things vertically 2 or 3 times that magnitude in Anthem. And so as you go through a mission, you're just all over. You're down in caves. You're up at high altitude in the cliffs. You're on the mainland. Like it's the geometry of that game is fairly amazing.
so let's keep on the Game Pass rotation here for the assignment. Swiss, you played a little bit of Minecraft Dungeons. Minecraft Dungeons came out just this year, but you decided to go back to that. How was your
Yeah,
experience? Did you play by yourself or with family?
no, I played with family. I hadn't touched it yet, so it is kind of going back. I don't have it on Game Pass. I actually have it through
This
the
is the one
Windows.
that you couldn't play for
Right.
a while, right?
I specifically bought it through the Windows Store because they allow you to, if you have it on your Microsoft associated with your Microsoft account, you can get it on multiple PCs, and like my kids could play simultaneously together. So they've been doing that for Minecraft for years. We're going to do that for Minecraft Dungeons, and it didn't work for the first month, and it finally did, and things happened, and I just never got around to it. But I finally decided to get with my son, and we're gonna just go through it. And he's already played it quite a bit, but he got a new character, and we started going through it. So real fast, it's, I think you guys have touched on it. It's kind of like a Diablo-like type looter like RPG type thing that was set in the Minecraft universe. I kind of like it. Like it's light for what it is that how I'm playing it, like with my son who's still in elementary school. So he's old enough to like understand and want to mess with the loot and try different things, and like he grasps that concept, but it's not so heavy that it's a burden. So we're going through it. My initial reaction when they started to get the different kinds of loot is like, oh man, I'm going to enchant this one sword, because you have to get, that's like you level up, you can put the enchantments on, and then suddenly they give me this other thing, and now I don't have any enchantments, but I see that you can break down like your old stuff and pretty much reuse the enchantments on the new stuff that you get. So if you approach it with like a kind of like a carefree attitude, and you're not too care much about the loot, and you're just like, I think I'm going to try this piece right now, and you break down your old stuff and you power up the new stuff as you get it, and you just kind of let the loot come to you and go with it. It can be entertaining. So at that level, yeah, it's been enjoyable. I've been having fun playing it with them. It's not very deep. I think people have been upset about that, but maybe I didn't go in with super heavy expectations, so it's been fine.
Prime, you played it with your son as well, right?
I played with my son and my wife. Yep, on the Switch. Yeah, it's, and I pretty much knew going in it wasn't going to be like super heavy, so I was fine, and that's kind of why I wanted them to play too, because it's pretty easy just to pick up and play. And actually, recently they did have an update that gives you crossplay, so we can play one day maybe.
Yep, maybe that came out like the other day. And this will be one more complaint that I have about the Windows Store. They put the stupid patch out, and then none of my Windows machines could launch Microsoft Dungeons anymore. And my kid's like, why isn't Microsoft Dungeons working? And I had to uninstall it and then, do the whole rigmarole where I have to log in as me and then log in as them, and then they can install it on their profile. And then it still didn't work on my computer, so I had to uninstall it, reboot my computer, and then reinstall it because their patch doesn't go out properly in the stupid Windows Store. Rant off. It's worth it. It's worth it because I can buy one copy of Minecraft Dungeons and my kids can play simultaneously together.
Yep, that is a nice feature. So, speaking of playing together, Prime, your game is one that I've been playing for the last few months with some high school friends. We've had a franchise in Madden 20, and so you picked up Madden 20. Why now? And how are you liking it?
Because it was free, sort of, because it was in Game Pass. That's why I picked it up. Actually, a little, backstory. I used to be a Madden bro, if you want to call it that. But I used to pick up all the Maddens up until I think about 2007. I think 2008. I think was the last one I had gotten. And I just by that time I was like, all right, this is just the same thing with pretty graphics and okay, yeah, they tweak stuff here and there, but I was like, all right, I'm just gonna lay off of it for a while. So. And then finally, when this one came back to Game Pass, I was like, all right, I'm gonna give it a try, and I'm really enjoying it. I mean, the graphics are just like, it's just amazing. Like, not so much this, but it kind of goes in the same vein. Like I would play like I don't know, like a basketball game or something. My wife was like, oh, are you watching the game? Because I usually don't watch any sports normally. It's like, no, I'm playing the game. So and this is like really that kind of realism just in the graphics and even with the commentary too, just kind of surprising. Just because back in the old Madden days, like the 16-bit ones, it's kind of the same thing over and over again. Even some of the early like 3D ones. But here it's just like it just flows a lot easier, a lot better. It doesn't seem like kind of mechanical, like kind of like it was before. Like you can almost kind of hear like the audio kind of switch as like one person was talking and to the other person, or Madden was talking with the other announcer, or just like the normal like refs and stuff. So it's very natural now, and I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I really like it, and I'm gonna keep playing it just because I haven't, like I said, I haven't played a Madden or any kind of football in a long time. So
Well, stay on the mic because as we transition into the rest of our games, you put down smorgasbord of EA games. So, what else from the EA Play integration into Game Pass did you dive into and try?
yeah, so besides Madden, I picked up or I downloaded Sims 4, which I kind of off and on with the Sims throughout the years. I even tried some of the mobile stuff, but I play for a little while and then I kind of drop off of it. But I wanted to try it here. I was playing on my Xbox S, and I was having some issues with the input. Like I would do stuff and like nothing would happen, and then like 30 seconds later, I just start doing all kinds of stuff. So I don't know if it was something with the S, or maybe I was thinking just now that I think might have been still downloading some other games in the background. So sometimes that does kind of screw up the game you're kind of playing. So that might have been part of it. But I have to go. I only tried it the one time, and it was like maybe like a half hour or so. I'm gonna go back into it and kind of play a little bit more and see how it is. I'm both on the S and the X. And then the next game, kind of going with my I guess extreme sports. I was playing Skate 3, playing different skate and biking games lately. So this is actually a 360 game, which is actually kind of nice that it came to Game Pass through the EA Play. So I've been playing that, and I actually really enjoy it. I remember back in the day, I don't think I ever played it back on the 360. I kind of steered away from it just because the controls are way different than like Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk is more arcadey and you just hit a bunch of buttons and you're grinding and you're doing all this stuff like kind of automatically. I mean, you still got to do some kind of stuff and kind of time stuff right, but Skate 3 is like pretty. You got to be pretty precise, like when you're doing your grinds and even with the tricks and stuff like that. It uses the right stick for a lot of the tricks and different kind of things. So that was kind of a little different, trying to get used to that. But I'm starting to get used to it, and then I play it. That one I actually play with my son too. We kind of just trade off for now. I think you might be able to play online, but I'm not sure yet because this is like the 360 thing and the emulation thing. Pretty much every time I played it, it like tries to connect to the EA Nation. I think it was called it's called EA Nation, but that was like their kind of online service, and it kept erroring out. But there was like one of the last times I played, I actually connected and I actually brought in people from my playlist, so as like characters in the world, not obviously live, but it was kind of like the drivatars from like Forza or something, where they're kind of it kind of mimics what they had been doing at the time. So that was kind of cool. I kind of like that. So hopefully I can. I don't know if it was just something with my internet or if it doesn't work sometimes, but hopefully I can connect to that a little bit more often and maybe try to have my son be playing on one of the systems and I can connect on the other one and we can play together or something like that. So, and then last one I downloaded Jedi Fallen Order, which I completely forgot about, and I actually saw a tweet on that day that had come out that that it was coming to there. It's like, oh man, perfect, because I wanted to play it and I just hadn't had a chance to play it, and I'm really enjoying that game. I really like it. I mean, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so and that one kind of just fell through the cracks for me. But yeah, this is a really great game, really beautiful game. It's really nice, the graphics. So
Yeah, it really is. And get back to Agasicles' question about Demon Souls, that the combat in Fallen Order is semi Souls like, and that I really enjoyed. And maybe it's because I was invested enough to get the systems down, or maybe it's because I turned it down to easy so I could keep playing. But yeah, no, Fallen Order is a lot of fun.
Very righteous that game was nominated into Action Adventure Game of the Year. So I was highly worried that game was going to get slighted and snubbed, and people wouldn't remember back to December after it had missed the cutoff last year. So I was glad to see that they got some kind of a nod.
So speaking of the Game Awards that got announced, one of the games that got announced for the nominee of Game of the Year was Doom Eternal. And Swiss, you played a little bit of that this week, it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know why I got like an itch to play like a more hardcore first-person shooter. Ironically, another Bethesda property, Wolfenstein: The New Colossus, came out in 2017, right around this time, like at the end of October, and I picked that up at the time too. But yeah, it went on sale on Steam, so I picked it up. And Game of the Year, it's I don't know. It's not a bad game. It's not horrible. Like I'm playing it like I want to defeat the game. Like I want to, overcome the obstacles. But I think it's fundamentally flawed. And so I'm not a huge Doom guy. I played the old school, maybe Doom clones way back in the 90s. But I'm not like super into the lore or anything. So I don't know about like the platforming and if that is a travesty in Doom land or not. But you have your map. You have to navigate basically from point A to point B. It's not open world. That's fine. It is what it is. But there's some platforming elements that you have to get through. So it's kind of like these weird stretches where you're jumping around, and it's the same feeling you have in Destiny 2 when you're like, man, why you make me jump on these stupid platforms? Just get to the thing.
But much worse.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you played this in the spring, didn't you, Agasicles? And I remember you complaining about some of the systems in it as well.
So yeah, it's stuttering when it comes like that. Because then once you get to the kill box area where you have to fight the waves of enemies, the game completely changes. And but I still think it's not fundamental. That's one issue. It wouldn't be like a thing that sinks it. I think the fundamental flaw is the gunplay, which is a problem considering it's a first-person shooter. You have very limited amounts of ammo, and I think Agasicles touched on this back in the spring. And so they don't leave enough drops for you. So what do you have to do? You have to if you run out of ammo, you have to take your chainsaw and slice the fodder enemies with your chainsaw to break out the ammo, like a piñata type thing, basically. If you're running out of health, you have to get them to where they're almost dead, and then you can punch them and they'll give you more health. And if you need more armor, you have a little flamethrower thing that you can spray them with, and they'll kind of pop armor out while they burn. So it wants you to use the fodder demons to harvest the resources. On paper, that sounds interesting. In effect, it's a very severe. It severely undermines the experience, because what are you doing amidst all of this is you're running around like an arena, and they have like all gymnastics bars and jumps and ramps and everything because they want it to be kind of platformy. So you're sprinting around and you run out of ammo, and then you're like, I gotta find a fodder demon. Meanwhile, like the big demons are shooting at you and everything. So it's stressful, but not like in a cool way. It's stressful in an annoying, frantic way. And so you're scrambling to harvest enough stuff, and then you can go attack the big demon for a little bit, and then you I gotta go find some other guys to harvest some stuff, and you're sprinting around, and you don't feel powerful. You don't feel like this like Doom Slayer guy that's cutting and slicing your way through the minions of hell. It's just like a frantic, like stress thing to get you to find to have to harvest your ammo, and it's artificial. So
you feel like you're playing No Man's Sky at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I like that. So yeah, it doesn't I don't know. It doesn't feel right. I kept thinking back to my experience with Wolfenstein: The New Colossus and how much more I enjoyed that that first person shooter experience. So game of the year, I don't think you can put a game with as severe a design flaw as Doom Eternal in that category.
No, I'd agree. I know we're going long, but I just want to say, so despite our differences as gamers, I am incredibly impressed that Swiss and I have roughly landed in the same kind of circular area with regard to Doom. And the only thing I'll add on top of that, or just amplify on top of that, agree it shouldn't be in Game of the Year. Here's my big problem and my big reason why. Just the same as I wouldn't ever allow a game with the game-ending bugs like Fallout and some of the Morrowind series games have had. My big problem with Doom, and the thing that Swiss talked about, is that element of having to utilize some of those enemies as resources is a design flaw, in that there are situations and scenarios you can get into where the only way you can complete a level is to allow yourself to die and replay it. Because you can get to a point where there is a large enemy left on the screen, you run out of ammo, and you can't harvest any demons because your chainsaw has run out of gas.
Right, that's the biggest thing. The chainsaw is limited as well, so it's
that
like
is a bug. That is a huge deal. That is a game like that shouldn't be feasible. If you're gonna design something like that, you should have an off ramp for people to get out of that situation. And the fact that exists, and it's not if you had advertised it as a roguelike, right, or something similar, that would be different. But you didn't. That bug exists. People don't complain about it. They don't recognize it as a defect. That's just wrong.
And the other thing is, like, talking about the big demons, their weak points are usually associated with a specific weapon that you need to use. Like, so against demon whatever, I need to use my plasma rifle because otherwise I can't get through the shields. It's like you're limited in ammo. I can't sit there and hit it with my shotgun 50, 100 times. So you need a specific weapon. And so in addition to having the limited ammo, switching between the weapons is a pain. They have like a weapon wheel, but when you're sprinting around the level at 100 miles an hour, like Agaskli said, you're not using the weapon wheel. So I just kept scrolling, and I'm sprinting around in circles, and I'm scrolling. I'm like, where the heck is I haven't got my plasma. Where's my? Oh, that's right. I ran out of ammo on the plasma rifle because it doesn't come up with no ammo. You only have it up with no ammo if you've been using it. So then you have to go, it'll just scroll to the next weapon with ammo. So then you have to realize you have to do the fodder, and then you pull the chainsaw, and the chainsaw's out of gas.
And so a huge difference is the saving grace of Doom 2016 is that your pistol had unlimited ammo. And so that was your off-ramp. They removed that in Doom Eternal. And that's just, so you just wind up with kind of the travesty. So Prime, it looked like, I think you've been playing it too, or have dipped into it. Were you going to mention something?
Yeah, I had played a little bit of it, and yeah, I saw the same thing. Like, I didn't understand what was going on, because I literally, the first level, like when you hit that major part with the like the brain with the spider legs, I don't know what they're called, and you're kind of, okay, it tells you, hey, you know, this, I think you have to hit like the tip of its head, or maybe like the lower like part of it. I'm like, cool. And this thing's like bouncing around like all over. I'm like, how is this thing even moving this fast? And then there's like all kinds of demons coming at you. And I'm like, okay. So I mean, I died multiple times on that part, and I never actually even got past it. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I ran out of, like you said, I ran out of ammo, I ran out of gas, I ran out of everything. I was like, what am I supposed to do now? So I was like, I don't know. I kind of just fell off of it, just even after that first round. So, but yeah. So we have three people.
So Doom Eternal not worth the nomination for Game of the Year from the Game Awards.
And I'm assuming you guys are playing on. Well, I was playing like on this. I guess what would be considered medium, I suppose. Like the second from the bottom.
I didn't put it on easy. I completed the game. I left it on normal. It was a PETA. I was frustrated and angry with it, but because I wanted my opinion on the game to be considered valid on the internet, I didn't want to drop it down to easy.
I played on normal as well. And I can tell with the frustration. Like, you fight a boss, and they're like, yeah, you beat the boss. Oh, by the way, here's a bigger arena. Now fight 2 of them at the same time. Like, I like that, too.
Yeah, you haven't even gotten to. I mean, I don't know if you're going to stick with
very
it.
Far, but
yeah. So there's a thing called the Marauder, and that's a thing in and of itself. But then, the weapon limitations that you mentioned, that will rear its head in a way that to me is unforgivable.
So, Prime, you messed up my segue into one Game Award nominated game to another. But since we are running late for time, so I'm going to quickly hit this because it'll also tie in with our next Game Experience show in December as well. But I have been playing some Hades on Switch, and it deserves that nomination. It is fun. It is beautiful. The narrative is engaging, and it's a roguelike, so you kind of know that coming in, right? You know you're going to die, but narratively it makes sense because you're trying to escape from hell. The characterizations are really good. Again, this is it is the same studio that did Bastion and Transistor. So you get kind of some of the narrative stuff over the top of it, some of the narrator stuff over the top of it. But the roguelike aspect of it is enjoyable because it's in that kind of 3/4 top-down Diablo-esque like, and that feels a little different, and it just oozes style. I mean, it quickly gets you in, it quickly gets you invested into the characters, but it also quickly keeps you moving through the game. Because it's roguelike, you've got the kind of trappings of different doors will take you to different, branching paths as you go through, so that your runs will end up being differently. It's enjoyable. I have not seen the final boss. I'm not even close. I am happy to die and come back and grind out a little bit. It's a game that I thought, oh, it's kind of Diablo-like. I'm going to put a podcast on, but there's enough narration going on that I, just kind of lose myself in that world. So very enjoyable, but I'm going to try to have some more to talk about when we come back. Gentlemen, any other kind of quick takes, quick shots, any other games you want to give a shout out or experiences you want to talk about before we move on to our assignment?
Yeah, the only one I want to mention was I had in the rundown WRC 9, and the only thing I just want to bring up, I know Dirt 5 gets a lot of accolades, and it's a popular series, and everybody knows about it. The WRC series has been around for a while, but it has always been like a couple of notches below the Dirt series. I would say, if you are a big racing fan, if you are a rally fan, this year that equation is flipped. So Dirt 5 is a very arcadey kind of racer, which is in accordance with the TikTok that we've seen where we get a dirt rally game and then a dirt game. Dirt, the emphasis, not saying it's bad, but the emphasis this year is on next-gen hardware and ray tracing and showing that stuff off, and I feel like there's a level of depth missing. WRC 9, if you're looking for kind of more of a hardcore rally racer simulation kind of experience, the WRC experience is where you want to be. It models and maps the actual World Rally Championship series exactly as it should have been. The tracks are real world courses, and it is arduous and exacting. Like, it's, whether you're in cockpit or out, having to contend with the environment and having to contend with the multiple terrains is spot on. And so normally would not have picked this series up because, again, it's always kind of fallen beneath my radar, but I am very pleased and happy that I didn't follow that pattern this year. So if you're that type of a gamer and that's a fix you're looking for, especially in a launch cycle where Gran Turismo is missing on the PlayStation, and there's no Forza game in the launch window on the Xbox, I would definitely take an opportunity to check out WRC9.
Are you wheel and pedaling it or controller?
I have been on PC. I've been playing with the Elite controller, and then on the Xbox Series S, I've just been playing with the S controller. So I need to replace my wheel and pedals, but I didn't feel, not knowing as much, about WRC9 and it being a new experience for me. I've played some past iterations, but haven't gone deep into it. I didn't want to, expend the $200 to $400 on a new wheel and pedals just yet.
And this is a Codemasters game as well, in that.
This is not Codemaster, so I'm not as familiar with the developer, but I think I think the IP was actually purchased or taken over by a different developer a couple of years ago. So this is their second, maybe third iteration, and they've been struggling to kind of get their feet underneath them. But they're this year they're hitting on all cylinders.
All right.
No pun intended.
No, that's okay. I was quickly trying to search out the developer here. But so moving on to our picks plays, gentlemen, this is it. We are heading into our last GX show of the year. So our picks plays reflects that as well. Just like I said, I need to go back and play a little bit more Hades. It is fun, but I am somebody who enjoys a roguelike, so I could see that potentially if the roguelike experience is not your jam, it might be a little, you might not find it as engaging, but I think if you've ever enjoyed any of, if you enjoyed Bastion or if you enjoyed Diablo and things in that vein, there's a lot here to love. But this is the assignment related to what other games. My game was Hades that I needed to go back and play a little bit. But are there other games this year that you've missed, that you feel like you've missed out on or need to give a second chance to? Something that got buried or overlooked? Is there something that's starting to show up as a critical darling that you want to go back and see if it really is as good, or as we just talked about with Doom Eternal, is not worthy? So, in my case, that is Half-Life Alyx. At the time it came out, I did not have access to a VR headset outside of PlayStation VR, and now I have access to a Rift, or a Rift 2. Just Rift, right? There's no Rift 2 because they did Oculus 2. Swiss, you're talking about Paper Mario, the Origami King, Gascles and Prime. I'll be curious to see what is left in your checklist of games for this year that you need to give another shake at before we start talking about our Gaming Superlative show. So that is kind of where we're going for the next month. We're going to be off next week. Next week is Thanksgiving. We'll be back for the first week in December with another deep dive episode. We've got a deep dive episode to wrap up kind of gaming news after the console launches here. We've got one more game experience show. And then the third week of December, we will be in our superlative show. This is our equivalent to our games of the year. It's our games in a variety of different categories. There's plenty of shows that do a game of the year. Ours are a little more nuanced because why not? Let's find some categories that are valuable, that reflect our diverse experiences, and we've already started to populate those lists, and I've been thinking about mine. So I am always excited about that show, and I hope those of you listening and watching will keep an eye on the E2KG network over the next couple of weeks as we close out the year and look ahead as well. Any other final thoughts or announcements, gentlemen? All right. Thank you all. Great show. So much to talk about. It is wonderful to be at this time of year with a little extra long show, but we've got a lot of games to get through. So for myself, DBQ Hams, Gastically Stamos, Osiris Prime, and Swiss Guard, this is the Enough to Keep Going podcast on the E2KG network. Until next time, play the games that you love those you play with, and take care out there.